If you folks are interested in learning how to make your own fiberglass panels or sheets, this is the episode all for you. We're gonna do it real simple and real easy. This is directed to the DIYers, and it goes in line with like the 100 other videos we got here on this channel to help you guys build, create, make, and repair. So what we're doing is, these are some sample pieces. I've already laminated some 1708, but we are gonna scale this up, and it's not that hard to do. It's actually pretty easy and pretty exciting. Now, first thing you're gonna need is some kind of a flat work surface or table of some kind. And it could be a variety of things, but I've just got my workbench here, my work table, and that's just some 1/2-inch plywood and 2x4s. And this thing has seen many years of use. Now, one of the simple, straightforward tricks to this, and it seems so obvious once you see it, is gonna be like some clear packing tape. Now, I have used this whole roll, but what I did is I put it systematically over this surface and slightly overlapped each edge there. So we got probably 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of overlap. And I've done a larger area than what I really need to do. We're gonna do some pieces of material about that big or so. And you're gonna need some packing tape, and you're gonna need some mold release compound or wax. Now this is from Orca Composites. This is the Orca Shimmer. This is made for releasing molds. Now some plastic tape will release material like fiberglass just fine, but I like to go ahead and put some mold release wax in there, and that's gonna give it an extra layer. So anyway, and I want to thank you folks for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And my name is Joe Buskins. This is our family's boat shop, and I've been building and repairing boats my entire life. And matter of fact, our 29-footer that we built over the last few years is there in the background. And all kind of DIY stuff here for you folks. And the things you could do with some fiberglass sheet are like, it's hard to imagine all the possibilities. And I figure you folks out there are pretty creative, and I've been hearing some cool ideas from you guys in the comments. But what we've done is we've loaded up our applicator. We've already, for the sake of time, obviously we've put all of our clear packing tape down on our flat surface. And we are gonna apply this in a nice circular motion. And we're going to be overlapping our passes. You folks out there as old as me, y'all might remember the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. You got a little wax on and wax off. Applying a good mold release is very important. Now, I've got some folks out there that are maybe interested in building a mold, and we've got a hardtop mold building series that we did in high detail on how to build your own complex fiberglass parts. But this is the most simple form of molding, and it just results in a nice flat sheet of material, and you can make it different thicknesses and out of different material. We're going to be using a couple layers of 1708 biaxial, which is majority of our boat was built out of 1708 and 1808 biaxial glass. Now, we've already been using this over the last couple days. We've actually been building some little sample pieces. And matter of fact, you folks, if you missed that episode, we built some varying thickness panels here to show what the actual yield is with different kind of fiberglass fabrics. And if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to check in the previous episode or two and check that out. Now, one of my favorite items to have around the shop is just some blue shop towels. You can purchase those at almost all of your big box stores. Now, I'm going back to take this wax off pretty quick. Normally you would probably let it dry a little longer, but for the sake of time and the fact that we've already got a coat of wax on there, it should be just fine. Now, if you were building a molded surface out of composites and the mold is brand new, generally we recommend a minimum of 5 to 7 coats of mold release wax. The wax goes on, you let it dry a little bit, you take it off, you put another coat on, typically 2 or 3 coats a day on a large mold when it's a brand new mold. And that's basically like for you folks out there who grew up in the deep south and use cast iron skillets, and they got to be seasoned, or if you have a Blackstone, it's got to be seasoned. And molds are kind of the same way. Once they've built a few parts, the wax residue is kind of in the mold, and it will perform better and better, and you only have to add 1 or 2 coats after the initial seasoning or treatment. So, all right, that is probably going to be just fine. And you can see see where the wax residue on my fingerprints came out. Gonna discard that, and we've already pre-cut our pieces of our 1708 biaxial. The biaxial has like a layer of the CSM or chop strand mat on the backside, and then long fibers that are stitched in. And you could scale what we're doing up or down. It would kind of depend on your application, but when I was growing up, we built some big custom one-off boats that were over 40 feet long. We built a wooden form, and then we had a sheet mold that was 4 feet wide by 12 feet long. And we made giant panels of fiberglass, and you could rip them down into dimensions, strips and profiles, and we would actually build whole boats starting with that, and then we would laminate over it. So, I mean, the sky's the limit. Now today, just for demo purposes, we're gonna be going with some of the ISO polyester tooling resin from Fiberglass Warehouse. Now don't forget, anytime you use any of your resins that have been sitting around a while, very important to give them a good shake, agitate them up a bit. And if you want to learn more about different resins, we have videos on that as well. But for today, polyester is kind of your base resin. Almost all your boats out there are built out of polyester resin. We also use a lot of the vinyl ester resin. Now, if you give these folks a call, they not only do they have resin, they have Gelcoat, putties, fillers, all kind of composite supplies. Be sure to mention Fish Bump TV, and you can save some money there, folks. There's a discount code for you folks, and I want you to take advantage of that. So Fish Bump TV there at Fiberglass Warehouse. Now, what we're gonna need, I'm gonna guesstimate, we're gonna need somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 22 ounces or so. And that was actually on one of our previous episodes. It was a little bit about estimating or calculating your resin needs by the square foot. I'm probably going to go just a little on the generous side. Now again, it's important to mention, like when you're ordering supplies or you're calculating your needs for resin, I would probably factor in at least an additional 25% over what we may show as the bare minimum. Now I got my little cheat sheet here for how much catalyst we need. Let's say we got 16 ounces, we need 5 to 10 cc's. Today, it's fairly pleasant. We're probably gonna go with about 12, oh gosh, we probably go 12 or 13 cc's or so. You can see I've got it kind of marked off there. We're using some methyl ethyl ketone peroxide, or MEKP, but this has been dyed so that we can see it a little bit better. But that's what the container, the big gallon containers, normally look like. Now, if you're ordering any resins or gel coats, you're going to be getting it, like if you order for most of our suppliers, you're going to get a little smaller in a clear bottle like that. Don't fret, it's the same stuff, just in a smaller quantity. Very important to wear some eye protection and some gloves and take care of your skin and eyes. We'll go ahead and get a good mix on this. Got good conditions for fiberglass. Right now it's a little maybe on the cool side. That's why we went a little heavier in our catalyst application. You want to mix the sides really, really good. Stir up from the bottom. If you don't have a little temperature probe, not a bad idea to have something. We got 58 degrees, which normally for polyester resins and vinyl ester resins, I like to see about 60 degrees. With epoxies, you can go a little bit colder, typically down in the mid 50s or so, and some of them will even go cooler than that. But yeah, we're gonna go right into our mixing pan. That is probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make sometimes, is they mix a large quantity of resin in a cup, and when fiberglass resin starts to cure, it creates what they call an exothermic reaction, and that means it generates heat, and the heat actually speeds up the curing process. So it's kind of like a runaway train, if you will. The hotter it is, the faster it cures, the hotter it gets. Now we're going to be using a roller today. This is a trick I know that if you've been following the channel, we will take blue tape and wrap our relatively inexpensive rollers, and it'll get a lot of that loose material off of there, and it will improve the quality of your work. Now I always like to try to capture all the resin that's down in the cup. You don't want that sitting down in there, and I always like to wet underneath where we're going to be applying material. So I'm just going to go right over this packing tape and get a little bit of a base coat of your polyester resin. The sky's the limit here, folks. I mean, you guys, I've been getting some really cool comments and some interesting ideas, and I'm thinking about like fiberglass sheet, almost like plywood panels. You know, you can get a random 4x8 panel, and how many things can you build out of plywood, or like Coosa board or Divinacell, some of the other cores. Now I've went ahead and pre-cut some pieces here. We're gonna just do 2 layers, which again, depending on what you're building, you may want to go more or less. This is 1 layer of the 1708, and if you wanted to jump back and see the actual yields on some of these different materials, I've got all of that there where you can see 2 layers is going to yield about 3/32, or about 100 thousandths of an inch is going to be about what you're going to get there. So, but it's up to you, folks. I mean, like I said, it's one of those things that you can kind of adapt to that. I'm going to let it overhang on the edge just a little bit so that I've got something to kind of grab onto and peel it off of our panel here. Now, you folks have been really, really good about commenting and letting me know what kind of projects. I may not be able to respond to every comment you folks put out there, but I read every comment, and it gives me inspiration and ideas a lot of times for the channel. So please keep them coming if you don't mind. That really is helpful, and it's just fun for me to see what part of the world you're into. I had a comment this morning from Hungary, and we have a lot of folks we know that are watching in the UK and in Australia, and we want to welcome everybody to the channel, and I'm glad to share what was passed down to me. Like I said, I grew up in this shop. There was a little piece of debris there. Sometimes it's okay with your gloves just to reach in and pick that out. And if you guys and gals at home are enjoying the content we're doing and appreciate the hard work we're putting into it, we certainly do appreciate giving us that like, that share, that thumbs up. Certainly be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Totally free to do so, and that does help us do more of this stuff. If the channel doesn't grow, it's hard to do some of this stuff sometimes, make the time. And this is purely for you guys. This wasn't something I was going to make for a project. This is something just to show you folks at home what you can make, you can build. Now, I generally like to keep a little bucket with some rollers. Got different width rollers available. Sometimes we got some little narrow ones. Sometimes we use a wider one. That is called a fin roller, or a bubble buster, or a grooved roller. Not a bad idea to very rhythmically and systematically go from one side to the other. That's going to help work out any air bubbles. I'm going to go front to back, side to side. We've been talking a lot about optimal resin ratios, and if you look what we got going on here, you want the fiberglass to go more or less transparent. You may still see an occasional fiber, like you can kind of see one highlighted there, but a lot of times if you let them just soak for a few moments, even those will go transparent. You do not want puddles of resin on your surface. If you look at this, you can see there's a bit of gloss or sheen, but it's not puddling or standing. But you also do not want dry spots. You don't want white fabric or white fiber. And with practice, you will pick this up. Now, I've been doing this my entire life and had a lot of practice at it. And what we're going to do is just lay that right to the edge. And I'm sure I will use this for something. Lots of application for sheet material. Now, you could even theoretically put down some fiberglass and put some core material into that, and you could build some cored panels as well. Like to get a little bit of resin just on everything. And y'all will notice we go with the CSM side down always when we're working with the biaxial. The CSM or chop strand mat has a more random pattern that does a better job at conforming to surfaces, and it's gonna mate up and bond better versus putting the long strands down first. That is not what you want to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I've seen people that do it, but you're not gonna get optimal results, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right. My dad was always big on that. You know, do a quality job. It doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect, but doing a quality job, put plenty of material in there, know the basics of things so that you get a good result. And then maybe practice. This might be a great thing for you folks at home to start your adventures in fiberglass and composites, is maybe just make a panel of some kind and build something. You could cut this in little pieces and fabricate all kind of things. This is the simplest kind of molding, would be just a flat panel. And you can see here, that was about a perfect estimate of resin. If y'all look, I basically used the information we gathered over the last couple days. Now, of course, I've done this so much, I kind of know, but we basically I know how much resin a piece of 1708, 1 square foot, kind of multiplied it over this area, poured up about 22 ounces, and you can see that was nearly a perfect batch there. We don't want to waste this material, but you would hate to get right close to the end and have to mix up more. I'm going to work this resin in really nice back and forth. Since it's on the cooler side today, resin is going to be thicker. It's kind of like honey or syrup. When it's cold, it's going to be thicker, and it doesn't run or penetrate as well. When it's warm, it flows, and we're going to come back out with our, you can see there, that's actually pushing some bubbles and some resin. I'm going to come back this way. You can kind of see it pushing a little bit in front. That's okay if we get a little squeeze out. You don't want to push too hard. You don't want to squeeze all your resin out, but you got to squeeze hard enough to get the air out of there. And this is one of the keys to quality glass work, is using a little grooved roller and getting your resin to glass ratios right. Now again, I want to go from top to bottom. Very satisfying, folks. If you've never worked with this stuff, again, start with something simple like this. That is how the surface should look. There should be a bit of a sheen there. We don't have puddles of resin. We don't have dry fibers. And that is looking pretty darn nice. Now, one trick we're going to do here, it's a little bit cool today. Now, I do have another episode where we talk about working in cooler weather and little tricks and things you can do. We're using a little Wagner heat source here, and I'm gonna just broadcast a little bit of warmth on the surface. You notice I'm staying a good full foot or more, and you always want to move. Now, I can't overemphasize, super careful when using any kind of a heat source around these kind of materials. You can't leave it unattended. You have to move around. It is very, very important maybe to have a little temperature sensor, because like for right now, again, I'll qualify this. We're showing 62 degrees, and I'll show you what just a few moments of warming this up will do to the surface. It happens, it goes pretty fast. Already at 72 degrees. So you can see how rapidly. Now, something else you can do, obviously you don't want to be super careful setting this down, never near flammable liquids, but you can use something like a halogen, like a work light or a stand light, and it will cast some UV and some warmth on there and will accelerate it. So what we're going to do, we're going to warm this up a bit, and it won't be long. We'll be able to separate this and show you folks at home how this turned out. Okay, folks, our material has cured. Check this out. I've already started the corner lifting off our panel there. Ha, how about that? That's what you want, man. You want a good clean release. You can see that the tape has let this go very nicely. Now, there's obviously some little imperfections in there where the tape overlapped and whatnot, but if you were trying to build a little tank, or you can obviously take this kind of material and depending on the thickness of it, you can add some curve to it, make a curved panel, and then obviously you could core this. So there's a million and one things you could do with it. Imagine all the uses like plywood has, for example. And I mean, if you've got a flat work table or some kind of flat surface, some clear packing tape, and it's very important not to skip this step, folks. You're going to need some kind of a mold release compounder agent. This is the Orca Shimmer. All of these products, we will put Amazon links below our video's description, and that does make it easy and convenient for you folks at home, and it does support the channel as well. And also remember, folks, that the resins we use, like from Fiberglass Warehouse, be sure to take advantage of the Fish Bump TV discount code to get a price break for you folks at home. Now, I do always appreciate the suggestions, the input I get from everybody, and ideas like this kind of come from you guys a lot of the times at home, and we may build something with that. I don't know. Maybe you guys can suggest something that would be cool. But in the meantime, I want to genuinely thank everybody at home for your support of the channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you found a lot of value in what we're doing, that tells the YouTube algorithm we're doing well. Give us that thumbs up, like, share, comment, tell a friend. It's Captain Joe here, Fish Bump TV. My son Logan working hard behind the scenes as my excellent cameraman. And we will catch you folks in the next episode.